Back. The first day of school holidays has ended in tragedy for a Lenasia family. An 11-year-old boy has drowned after being swept away by the fast-flowing Klip River. The child was with a school friend when the current took him.
A fun and carefree fishing expedition turns tragic. This 12-year-old boy and his friend planned to spend the day at the Klip River, fishing and swimming. Instead, he watched helplessly as his 11-year-old friend was pulled away by a strong current and dragged beneath the surface. Emergency services spent hours searching the river, hoping to find the boy alive, but eventually pulled his lifeless body from the water.
All of the guys here, our hearts basically ache when we even get the messages we need to come and look for children.
As school holidays begin, officials are pleading with parents and children to be especially cautious when swimming.
Educating the children to stay away from the water if you can't swim. Educate the public in general, adults specifically, to look after their children, to keep them away from open water and from swimming pools that are not protected.
Authorities say if people don't observe the basic rules, this will be the first of many more tragedies this summer.
A top UN official says the world is losing the battle against HIV/AIDS, and he's called on leaders to take a long, hard look at their strategies to fight the disease. The UN's Michael Sidibe says he's made his plea on World AIDS Day.
25 million AIDS-related deaths in 25 years. At least 6,000 new infections around the world every single day. Those are the stark facts. And the head of the UN AIDS Support Department, Michel Sidibe, says it's not getting any better.
Let me say first that we are not winning this war. If you look at after 25 years, globally, the AIDS, we are not seeing any signs of level off in the world today.
An estimated 40 million people around the world are HIV positive. Over 60% of them are in sub-Saharan Africa. And Sidibe believes South Africa holds the key to solving the problem.
Many things are critical for us. South Africa, if we don't succeed in South Africa, we will not be able to transform the response in this continent.
Sidibe says South Africa is best positioned to respond to the pandemic, but a lack of political will is hampering the process. He wouldn't be drawn on Health Minister Manto Tshabalala Msimang's contentious policies, but he did applaud Deputy President Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka for her recent work on HIV/AIDS. But the UN's top man on AIDS says there's a long way to go yet and has some advice for government.
Sidibe says the South African government should review its national strategy on HIV/AIDS and mend fences with lobby groups like the Treatment Action Campaign. An approach, he says, will be a proactive treatment and prevention plan. Lukhanyo Chalata, E-News, Cape Town.
And as the UN calls on government to modify its policies, AIDS activists say the situation in this country remains bleak. There are almost 5.5 million South Africans living with HIV, and only 230,000 of them are on antiretrovirals.
Alexandra, with a population of just under 400,000, is a typical South African township. It also represents many of the areas that government is focusing on in trying to curb the spread of AIDS. These are a few of the 12,000 volunteers spreading AIDS prevention messages. They explain what AIDS is and how it can be avoided. A hopeful campaign. But South Africa has mostly been seen to fail on HIV and AIDS. This isn't new. 5 years ago, this plea from a dying Nkosi Johnson largely fell on deaf ears.
Government must start giving AIDS kids to all infected men and children.
He begged government to distance themselves from AIDS dissidents. Although Nkosi died, the fight for a comprehensive HIV and AIDS plan remains desperate. Up until a month ago, Health Minister Manto Tshabalala Msimang was still pushing nutrition as a way to fight the disease.
I say garlic, I say lemon, I say beetroot.
Government has now tasked the Deputy President with clearing up the confusion. But is this too little, too late? AIDS activists are not convinced.
We are concerned about developments in recent weeks that suggest to us that maybe this is just a political solution and may not actually result in policy change and in the implementation of new policies.
There are currently 5.4 million people living with HIV and AIDS in South Africa. Officially, there were 350,000 AIDS-related deaths this year. That's 950 people dying a day. In 2015, South Africa will have 2.5 million AIDS orphans. Amid these statistics, activists warn efforts to treat and prevent AIDS are stagnating around the world. The International Treatment Preparedness Coalition says the AIDS pandemic is worsening, and the most recent global infection rates show this. Worldwide, there have been 4.3 million new infections.
Infections and prevalence levels amongst youth and amongst pregnant women are on the rise. So really we're facing an emergency.
This is the 18th time South Africa and the rest of the world have marked World AIDS Day. The virus has killed 25 million people globally, and there is little hope of a cure or vaccine. So the solutions remain the same. Governments must act to ensure that those living with the virus get speedy access to treatment, and people should either abstain or stay faithful and get tested. Kale Naya, E-News, Johannesburg.
In other news,